together. Tighten your gun up. You don't have to do that, but you can for this exercise. And at that stage, you're going to go into clean mode. You've got no filters in the gun or the housing, so you've got a free flow pump, and then you've got two choices. You can either run the auto clean, or you can clean it the old fashioned way, which is basically holding the gun open into your bucket of water. Again, primary mode, facing the drain, the pressure relief valve towards the hose, which is going to push the material out through the hose, and basically clean it. Once you get free flow of water come out, change your water and do it the second time. Or the other option is, again, no pressure in the machine, 4 dots on the screen. You can use the auto clean, which is basically this device here. So you take your cap off and you screw the gun onto the face of the auto clean. Not over tight. Again, all these fittings are hand tight, very loose fitting. Because you've got no pressure in the machine, you can then operate that drain valve to the down position for this auto cleaning process. At that stage, you have to have the gun actually locked on, and also the instructions, if you don't remember this, are inside the lid on the machine. So this clamp device actually holds the gun, the trigger gun opened. At this stage, you hit your control button on the display once, twice, and 3 times. It will come up with 4.5 minutes of cleaning processing time on there. And then once your gun's open, your drain valve is pointing to the ground or going back into the bucket. You'll then turn the machine up and you see the hose pulsing. What happens is, instead of the material coming out through the hose this way, out through the gun, it's actually going backwards, chasing your debris and your rubbish out through there, and actually dropping it back through your drain hose. So it's cleaning the whole system out. Okay? And you can utilise that, let the machine run for 4.5 minutes, providing you've got minimum of 15 litres in your bucket. You can go away and clean your machine, clean your other components, and come back, and the machine would have turned itself off after 4.5 minutes. If you don't have your minimum 15, 17 litres in your bucket, the watchdog won't operate, because it only operates over 500 psi. So you just need to remember that. Even though the watchdog is on or in this position, it will not trigger it.
And if it doesn't?
Well, what it'll do, it'll actually race away like it normally would do, and you'd hear the different tone of the machine running away. So after your 4.5 minutes, you would have actually run through that material through the hose. It is advisable to run another 15 litres of material through the hose to make sure you get the material clean out of the system as much as you can. At the last point of operation, the machine would have switched itself off. Turn the machine off with the pressure control set down. You can turn the machine back on to make sure there's no pressure left in the system. Take your trigger lock off. Unscrew the gun from the auto clean. Pop the cap back on there to protect it. There is a seal inside there, which is a seal that fits onto your rack 5 black tip housings. It's the same seal in there, so if you lose it, you can utilise that seal that goes in there. So pop that back on there, it'll stop that seal from falling out or losing it. Now, at this stage, you would then have the system clean as much as possible. Again, checking the pressure system. There is no pressure in the machine because you have 4 dots on the screen. I would open this filter housing up and check down inside the filter there to make sure there's no residue. If there is, you can actually just pop a rag down in there and clean it out and clean the tube out. And at that stage, I would then clean my filters, pop my filters back on to the filter support and popping that back into there, and doing the same with the gun. Once the filters are all clean, and basically at that stage everything should be clean. The last stage, what you need to do is make sure you expel all the water out of the machine, tip the machine back like that, and at this stage you then take your bucket away, and at the last stage take your return tube, pop it into your slops bucket and turn your machine on, because your drain valve is pointing to the ground or from, as your last position was, and turn your machine on very slowly, and you'll see the last little bit of water coming out of the machine. You never ever leave water in your machine, and that's it. So you've got your machine's free of water, and you're not going to have contaminant left in your machine, the fluoride and the chloride and all the components inside the machine to start corrosion to build up inside the machine. So we want to stop it there. We'll go.
Right, say that again.
Okay. To count your litres on each job, to see what the machine is actually sprayed, you have to have no pressure. Again, the 4 dots across the screen to tell how many litres the machine is actually sprayed. Push the control button once, it comes up with job, and it actually will tell you how many litres it's sprayed times 10. So it's, if it has 2 on there, that means you sprayed 20 litres of material. To get the life, which is the odometer on your, same as your car, you hit it a second time, it'll tell you the total life of the litres the machine is actually sprayed. And again, the third person there is your watchdog feature again. Now, going back one step to the job meter, if you've got 20 on there, you go to the next job. If you want to zero that out again, you simply just hold your finger on the button for 5 seconds, and that will actually zero the controls out, and you're back to zero, and you can start again. I'm going to demonstrate how quickly it is to open the bottom valve of the pump, and the bottom valve is the intake valve of the pump, and that will allow you to prime the machine up. If you get to the situation where you cannot prime the machine, and it's got to do with the suction ball, and I'll show you in a minute how to get to that. So you can tilt the machine back to do this exercise, which is a feature for us when we service the machine. All the fittings on the machines are hand tight. So again, when you finish cleaning at the end of the day, you would also, well, I would hope for Stuart, clean this filter as well. The second is the pickup tube. Again, it's hand tight. And there's an O-ring seal on there which seals on the top of the suction tube. Again, take it off and clean it. The third step, you don't have to do this every day, but it is advisable on a regular basis to clean this housing out. To get the housing off here, you can actually take the spanner that you've got in the toolbox and quickly knock it off and unscrew the base of the pump, and there's your cylinder and there's your piston, which you can see the top of it just there. And you can see in the bottom of there is still a little bit of water still in the base of the pump, and that's but it's not actually enough there to be actually sitting inside your machine. Inside the pump, this is your suction ball, and this is what will stop you from priming the pump. Inside there, this is the intake valve. If that ball does not come away from there to allow the material to come in there, you will not get suction lift on the pump, and therefore you won't prime the machine. So the way to clear that is 2 ways. You can actually break the pump down like I have there, make sure that there's no contaminant or residue of paint in there, and also down in there. And also there is in the bottom here a white O-ring, Just make sure that it's not scoured out, or you use a tool in there to clean it out. So to replace this back into operation, just pop your valve seat into the pump. It can go either way, it's two-sided. Pop it down in there, pop your ball bearing down onto the valve seat, and put your ball cage back into the pump like that, and it should look like that. Don't put the ball on top of the ball cage, because you will have an accident. And as simply as to pop that back onto the pump, and make sure that at that stage you do bed that back onto the O-ring that seats on there. The other way to clear that ball is you can remove that tube and just push your little finger up in there, and you can feel the ball bearing move away from the seat, because it can get sometimes stuck in there. But if you do run terps and leave your terps in the machine, it will leave an oily film on that ball, and it will reduce the stick onto the seat. So, and again, hand tight, pop that back onto there. Simple hand tight, and then put your suction strainer back on there, and basically you're back in business for the next day. That's it. Tell me action, I'll be right.
Yeah, action.
Okay. TSL oil, which is called throat seal liquid, which is a solution. It's a solvent-based oil, so don't put it on your car, don't put it on any other paint, because it will peel the paint off other products. In the morning, when you start priming the machine, you must apply liberally to the shaft on the end of inside the grill, and you'll see it operating when you're priming the machine up. You simply push that through the guard and apply it onto the rod until you see that the rod is coated quite liberally, or you get some dripping out through there. Once it's coated liberally, on a daily basis, I would be using it if you're using the machine heavily during the lunchtime, or check it regularly to make sure that the shaft, the piston rod or shaft, is actually coated with the TSL oil. If you don't, the paint will dry onto the shaft as it's operating, and it will then crystallise and then score, and also tear your seals on the top end of the pump. Very critical. You've got to have that. You've got to have that at all times and use it daily.
Okay.